What I want to talk to you about this morning is discover the difference between doers of the word and hearers of the word.
All right.
Satan has no problem with us being hearers of the word. As a matter of fact, Satan knows the word better than we do.
Right.
So as long as we just hear the word, Satan doesn't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us in James 1:22, it says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says."
All right.
If you just listen to the word, you deceive yourself.
Wow.
Do what it says. So if the Bible tells us do what it says, then what does it tell us to do? Well, the main scripture this morning, if you have your iPhone, your tablet, your Bible, your iPad, whatever means that you look up scripture in, we're going to go to Mark. We'll go to Mark chapter 15, or excuse me, Mark chapter 16, verses 15 through 17. Mark 16, verses 15 through 17. It will also be on the screen up here. So when you get there, you can say amen, run, or do something. Okay? All right, so what does the word tell us to do? So let's pick up in verse 15. It said, "He said unto them, Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." Okay? That's God's great calling on our life. Okay? Verse 16 says, "Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned."
All right.
And then finally in verse 17 it says, "And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons, and they will speak in new tongues." It don't say that they may drive out demons. It says they will. So I want to focus really this morning on verse 17, just the second sentence, middle part of it says, "In my name they will drive out demons." Another word for demons that's used in the Bible is enemies. God knew that as we went through life, we were going to have enemies. As a matter of fact, the word enemy or enemies is mentioned 372 times in the Bible. Okay? It would make David Letterman's top 10 list of issues in the Bible. Okay? It's mentioned that many times in the Bible. We all face an enemy. We talked a little bit this morning about the enemy that was coming against us, trying to come against us this morning in the service. But we're going to push through, and God's going to win in the end. And anytime you push through your enemy, God always wins. Listen, as a matter of fact, and this is a pretty deep statement, so listen closely. Encountering and engaging the enemy is essential for doers of the word to reach their destination through the demonstration and manifestation of the authority of Christ.
Yes.
Let me say that again to you. For doers, not hearers, for doers of the word to reach their destination, okay, it is essential to encounter an enemy and then through the demonstration and manifestation of the power of Christ to conquer that enemy, to eliminate that enemy. Pastor Ron Carpenter wrote a book a few years back called The Necessity of an Enemy. How many of you read that book? Necessity of an Enemy. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to read it because it's an awesome book. And in that book, one of the statements that Pastor Ron says that the enemy or Satan cares more about what you're becoming. The enemy cares more about who you're becoming than he does who you are.
Right.
The enemy cares more about who you're becoming
Amen.
than he does who you are. He doesn't have a problem with you hearing the word. It's when you start doing the word that he starts having a problem. Listen, all through life, you're going to face enemies. It happens in the secular world. It happens in the biblical world. It happens in every movie you go see, at the movie theater, just about, cartoons, everything. There's always an enemy involved, right? There's always good versus evil. But Christians have it wrong today. Too many times, instead of standing and choosing to stand and fight, we choose to flight.
Right.
We choose to run. Listen, the Bible doesn't tell us to flee from our enemy. Listen what the Bible tells us. The Bible tells us in James 4:7, "Submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you." It doesn't tell you to flee from your enemy. It says the Satan will flee from you. But you must resist the enemy. How do you resist the enemy? Through the power and authority of Jesus Christ. We allow Satan to treat us like dogs, like he's training dogs. Sit, stand, beg, roll over, play dead.
That's good.
We need to remind Satan who his master is and who has him on the leash. Okay? And instead of him telling us to sit, stand, beg, and roll over, we can tell him that because we have authority through him in Jesus Christ.
Come on now.
Listen, instead of sitting down, shutting down, or shutting up, we need to stand up, start up, and speak up. We need to stand up, start up, and speak up because we have God on our side, not through our own selves, but through God. So this morning I want to focus a little bit on secular history, biblical history, and then also bring you some real life examples of when the enemy has been encountered, engaged, and eliminated.
All right.
Okay? So let's talk about that. Think about secular history. Let's take it back to when our country was first founded. George Washington, the father of our country, right? I want you to get that picture in your mind of him crossing the Delaware. Okay? He's in the boat, he's crossing Delaware. What's he crossing that Delaware to do? He's crossing Delaware to sneak attack on the British. Who was his enemy? The British. The entire British army was his enemy. It would have been very easy to stay on the other side of that bank instead of that boat. Okay? George Washington chose to get in that boat, go to the other side, and engage the enemy. And because of that, because of his willingness to engage the enemy, he conquered the enemy and he defeated the enemy. Okay? It was necessary for George Washington to have an enemy to reach his destination.
Yes.
Okay? If George Washington had not encountered that enemy, would he have ever reached his destination? No. Now he's known today as the father of our country. Think about Abraham Lincoln, 16th president of the United States. Okay? When do you think slavery began in the U.S.? Slavery began in the U.S. in the early 1600s, 1619. Okay? Abraham Lincoln didn't come in presidency until 1861. Over 240 years later was when Abraham Lincoln came into presidency. Slavery had been going on in the U.S. for over 240 years. It would have been very easy for Abraham Lincoln to say, ooh, hands off, I'm not touching that. 15 other presidents have let this slide through. I'm going to do my 4 years, my 8-year term. I'm going to get out and ride off in the sunset. No, Abraham Lincoln chose to stand up and fight for what is right because part of our Constitution was that all men are created equal. But listen, long before the Constitution was written and said all men are created equal, God said in His Word that He was no respecter of persons. That doesn't mean that God doesn't respect anyone. That means God respects everyone.
That's right.
Okay. Abraham Lincoln chose to stand up and do what was right.
Amen.
Let's look on down through some more secular history. How about Dwight D. Eisenhower? Dwight D. Eisenhower. What was going on? What was Dwight D. Eisenhower fighting for? Who was his enemy? Hitler. One of the meanest, most feared men in the history of the world. Hitler. It would have been very easy for us to stay in the U.S. and say, well, that's going on over there. We don't want anything to do with that. We're going to stay over here. No, Dwight D. Eisenhower chose to do what was right. He chose to go fight the enemy. And listen, anytime you fight the enemy with the authority and the power that you should, the enemy's going to crumble under you. Amen. Hitler, no matter how much power he thought he had, he didn't have enough power. He crumbled when someone with authority looked him in the eyes, looked him in the face, and told him that he would not back down. By President Kennedy. President Kennedy. You remember at that time, a lot of the Cold War was going on. Matter of fact, the Cuban Missile Crisis. You remember that? Most of you in the room probably not old enough to remember that. I remember that. I was 3. I remember like it was just tomorrow, yesterday. But had he not, President Kennedy, chosen not to stand up to Russia and say, we're not going to allow those missiles. And everyone in this room this morning may be speaking Russian. Because President Kennedy stood up to what was right. Today we're speaking English, right? But even take it outside of those heroes that had to have an enemy to reach their destination. For those presidents to be remembered as some of the greatest presidents ever, they had to face that destination. Think about just our real life. Okay? When I say real life, I'm being a little facetious. Think about all the movies we go see. American Sniper. Okay? Did he have an enemy? Absolutely. Absolutely. The Hunger Games. What was it all about? It was about trying to stay alive and defeat the enemy and overcome, right? Taken. You remember the movie Taken? You know, it's all about defeating the enemy. I have a special skill set, and I will find you and I will eliminate you. Anytime we eliminate our enemy, it's what we're called to do. But even something even less and a little bit funnier than that. Think about all our cartoons. Okay? Listen, would you need Scooby-Doo and Shaggy and all them if there wasn't ghosts supposedly running around there? Or even better than that, think about it. Would Gotham City need Batman if there wasn't a Joker the Riddler? Huh? Or would we need Thor and Iron Man and who else? Thor, Iron Man, Captain Marvel. Would we need the Avengers if there wasn't the Sandman and other bad people running around there? Listen, you gotta have an enemy. You gotta have an enemy. Yeah, it's all about having enemies. Matter of fact, if you don't have an enemy, you're probably just a hearer of the word. Okay? Probably just a hearer of the word. Or in secular terms, you're probably sitting on the couch like a potato not doing anything.
Right.
So let's talk about some biblical enemies. Is it necessary to have enemies in the Bible? Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, biblical history tells us that an enemy is a necessity. In Luke chapter 10, verse 19, it says, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. All the power of the enemy. Think about some of the heroes of faith in the Bible. What about David? Mentioned David earlier. Who was his biggest enemy? Goliath. Okay, now David could have chosen, like his brothers and the rest of the Israelite army, to cower down and shake and tremble and stay in their tents and say, we're not going out and fight Goliath. But no, he knew that he had the power and authority of Jesus Christ with him, and there was no enemy that was too big for him not to defeat. Okay? So he went down to the brook, he got out 5 stones. I've heard some preachers say, and some people say, that he got out 5 stones because Goliath had 4 brothers. No, that's not it. Let me tell you the reason why he got out 5 stones. He knew he was only going to need 1 stone to take down the giant. He got out 5 stones because that was God's way of equipping him for the other enemies he would face in his life. The other 4 enemies he would face in his life, King Saul, King Sheba, himself. Remember when he was his own enemy and doing stupid things like I've done sometimes, and we've all done stupid things. But also his wife. There were times when he had to confront his wife because she didn't believe in everything that he was doing from Christian walk. So you have to face your enemies. And sometimes God equips you, not sometimes, all the time, God equips you with ammunition you need, not only to win the battle today, but to win the battle in the future. Win the battle in the future. Think about some other biblical heroes in the Bible. Okay? Let's talk about them for just a moment. Think about Moses. Think about Moses. Moses took on Pharaoh, one of the heads of the government. He took on Pharaoh. Okay? To talk about what kind of mismatch that would be, many of you, some of you may know, Herb here used to be a wrestler, not a wrestler, a wrestler. Okay? So he used to be a wrestler. All right? So that would be kind of like Herb taking on Hulk Hogan. I know who my money would be. Okay? So So that's about what kind of mismatch that it looked like to the people around for Moses and Pharaoh. But what they failed to realize is who Moses had in his corner. Okay? Who Moses had in his corner. Moses had the creator of the universe that was not only in his corner, but was directing him and telling him what to do. And because of that, he took the whole nation out of bondage. Think about some other biblical characters that had enemies. Think about Samson and Delilah. Ooh. We'll let you know a little secret. Sometimes your enemy will be beautiful. Sometimes your enemy will be in your own camp. Those are the hard ones to see. You'll see they're walking beside you every day. You know, you think they've got your back. You think they're your brothers. Ooh, those are the biggest enemies you try to see. And if you lose your focus for 1 minute, like Samson did, okay, then you can fall out of the authority. But then when Samson refocused, he got his mind and his eyes back on Christ. And God gave him that authority back. You remember in the temple, he pushed the pillars out, crushed thousands of the Philistines. Okay? Crushed thousands of them. So always have God on your side. Think about John the Baptist and Herod. You're probably sitting there thinking, ooh, that didn't work out too good for John the Baptist. He lost his head. Okay? Well, let me ask you a question this morning. Do you ever hear anything about Herod? mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I heard somebody say, man, that Harry dude, you know him? He was a pretty cool dude. You never hear anything else about Harry. Around the globe this morning, this very hour, there's thousands of people being baptized. In the end, John the Baptist won.
Amen.
Our victories may not always look pretty.
Amen.
They may cost us things. In the end, if you confront your enemy, you will win. You will win through the power of Jesus Christ. How about Peter? How about Peter? Who do you think Peter's biggest enemy was? Exactly right. Peter. Did you read my notes? Peter's biggest enemy was himself. Why was Peter's biggest enemy himself? Number one, he had self-doubt. He oftentimes engaged his mouth or engaged the clutch of his mouth before he engaged his brain. A lot of times he would say things without thinking. I've been guilty of doing that sometimes. You know, sometimes we lovingly refer to him as cussing Peter. He denied Christ 3 times. Sometimes Peter was his own enemy. Sometimes our biggest enemy is our mind. Battle of the mind. A lot of times if you can overcome the battle of the mind, then you can reach your destination because you've overcome the biggest enemy you have.
Yeah.
Who's your enemy this morning? Who's your stronghold? What's your enemy standing up in front of you? Think about Paul. Listen, Paul had the entire Roman government after him. He got thrown into jail more times than my cousin, and that's a lot. Okay? I'm serious. But Paul had the entire Roman government after him. Okay? And instead of cowering down or running off somewhere and hiding, he chose to stand up and do what's right. He chose to preach the word. Preach the word. Everywhere he went. In season, out of season. Missionary journeys. I mean, all around the world, he chose to preach the word. He chose to further that kingdom. How about Elijah? Remember the story of Elijah? Who's his enemy? Rahab and Jezebel. Remember that? Elijah had just seen one of the biggest victories in his life whenever he had prayed, fire down, and all the people that were worshiping Baal. Yet he started experiencing self-doubt and fear because Jezebel had sent word to him that she would surely see him die. Sometimes when the enemy comes against us strong, if we even just give 1 inch, then we start backing up. So he gave a little inch, but then, once again, he got back in the authority of Christ, and in the end, he ended up winning. As a matter of fact, you know, we think about the Baja men that wrote "Who Let the Dogs Out." The Baja men didn't write "Who Let the Dogs Out." Jesus wrote "Who Let the Dogs Out" because he said that the dogs would lick up the blood of Jezebel off the streets. And they did. Her own eunuchs threw her out the window. She splattered in the streets, and the dogs came licking blood out. So Jesus let the dogs out. Not the Baja men. All right. And last, but certainly not least in the Bible, let's think about Jesus himself.
All right.
Jesus himself. You think he had enemies that he faced? My goodness. Think about, once again, in his own camp, his own family. Who did he face? Judas. Somebody that walked beside him. Somebody that saw the miracles he performed. Saw the miracles he performed, but he betrayed him. Judas. Think about other people that betrayed Christ in his life. What about Caiaphas? High priest. Religious leaders. Any of you in here ever been hurt by religious people? Come on now. I know more than my hand on the other. Okay, we've been in some places where we've been hurt by religious people. Think about other enemies of Christ. Pilate. Okay? Pilate, a head government official. He was the enemy of Christ. Of course, the biggest enemy of Christ was the enemy of darkness himself, and that's Satan. But look at the example Christ gave us through his own life. Okay? He had an enemy in his own home, his own camp, his own family, in Judas. Then he had an enemy in the religious world, okay, in Caiaphas. Then he had an enemy in the government, who was Pilate. And then he had the head of the enemy, who was Satan. That was Jesus' example to tell us that in your life, you're going to fight different enemies.
All right.
But through the power of Jesus Christ, you can overcome every one of them. So listen, if Jesus himself, the Son of God, had to fight enemies, what makes us think that we're not going to have to fight enemies?
Right.
Absolutely. But the problem is, too many times we choose to fight those enemies on our own power. And if we do that, we lose. We've got to use God's power. Listen, He tells us in His Word that He's going to give us the power and authority over our enemies. But I know as a Christian nation, as a Christian people, we've become cynical. We've become doubting Thomases. And oftentimes, we don't see or believe we don't believe unless we see, right? So this morning, I've given you some secular history, some biblical history. Now I want to give you some real-life examples of, through the years, how either I've encountered the enemy, or the team that I've been on encountered the enemy, or missionary brethren that I know have encountered the enemy, and how they've overcome it. Okay? So, because I know sometimes seeing is believing, and we become a world that doesn't believe unless we see. The year was 2000. Me and youth pastor from Brushy Creek Church in Easley, Alfred Burgess at the time, we took a group of 40 college and high school students mostly from Brushy Creek, but also had about 10 from Temple Baptist in Greenville. And we all went on a mission trip to Juarez, Mexico. Okay? If you've ever studied any history of Juarez, Mexico, you know that it's one of the drug capitals of the world. As a matter of fact, this compound that we were going through an organization called Youth Works, and this compound we was going through was basically completely surrounded by the drug cartel. One of the richest, most powerful drug cartels in the world. Matter of fact, the pastor of this compound and the workers there at the compound had been threatened by Carlos Angel Lopez, who was the largest drug lord in that region, had been threatened if they left the compound at all, that he would have them killed. Okay? So he said, if you, your family, any of your workers leave that compound, you're going to be shot dead on the streets immediately. Well, us being from South Carolina, we're not always the sharpest knife in the door. So we get there, okay, and what do we choose to do? We choose to leave. Not only do we choose to leave, we choose to go see Carlos Angel Lopez and invite him to come in and see what was going on inside the compound. Surprisingly enough, he came. He came. Now, I'd like to tell you, when he come that night, that he received Christ, and now he's living this life. No, he's still a drug lord. But let me tell you what happened that night. What happened that night was before he left that compound, he told that pastor and the workers of that compound that for them not to be afraid of anything. That his cartel would keep them safe. If they went places, he would make sure that no one harmed them, that he saw the work that was being done. Matter of fact, he even said, and you know, I can tell a difference in the community. We're not having as much violent crime as we used to have. Okay, so he was okay with them taking the violent crime out of the community. He just didn't want to mess with the drugs. But think about that. Every battle that's fought has a first shot fired. That first shot that was fired was Carlos Angel Lopez agreeing to keep the pastor in his camp safe. Now, who's not saved one day? Seed's been planted, it's been watered, that Carlos Angel Lopez won't surrender his heart to Christ. That's why we continue to pray. Year's 2015, it's 15 years later, that compound is still going strong in Juarez. Everyone's still doing fine. Bailey's dad, I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet Bailey's dad or not. His name's Von West. We went on a mission trip a number of years ago to the Dominican Republic with a group over there. They was up having a church service one night. And of course, anytime you have a church service, Satan's going to try to slither his way in. Well, I'm using the word slither literally here. Okay? Because as they were up preaching, a demon-possessed man came slithering up the aisle. Purple eyes, I'm not making this up. Purple eyes, foaming at the mouth, just totally demon-possessed. When he got in front of that church, her dad and Robert and the other people that were there with the team, they laid their hands on that man. Immediately, that demon went out of him. Cleared up, his whole face cleared up, his whole countenance changed. That man was saved that night. But listen, he wasn't saved because Von West and Robert laid his hands on him. He was saved because Jesus Christ laid his hands on him through Von West. That's what I'm saying. With the authority of Christ, you can face the enemy. You can face the enemy. These are things we've seen firsthand. Let's talk about Jamaica a few years ago. Denise, myself, Bailey, and a group went to Jamaica on a mission trip, and we were having VBS, outside VBS. We do VBS in the morning at one location, VBS at evening at another location. We were having VBS that morning. I think it's the third day we're there, and maybe on Tuesday. And once again, we got, the first day, we had maybe 40 kids show up. And then by the end of the week, it was like, I don't know, 300 or 400. You couldn't even fit them in the church. But anyway, so second day, the enemy's always going to show up, and he knows somebody's about to reach their destination. Okay? So he saw what was building. The enemy showed up once again in the form of a demon-possessed man. Okay? Now this man didn't slither. He kind of almost like a hunchback of Notre Dame. He kind of did this thing and came up. But once again, you could see all black, face was pale, eyes are green. Just you could tell it was demon-possessed. Once again, the team prayed him out. Through the authority of Christ, prayed him out. So we thought, okay, everything's cool. God showed up. Satan fled. That's what it's supposed to be like, right? Well, the next day, guess what? He comes back, but this time he brings a female with him that has a stronger demon possession than he does. You can definitely tell her possession was stronger than the man that came earlier. So they both come. I mean, the female even, she licked her dad on the face, and I mean, it was intense stuff. I'm not gonna lie about it, intense stuff. But once again, in the end, through the power and authority of Jesus Christ, laying hands on them, they fled. So what I'm telling you is, anytime you're trying to reach your destination, you're gonna face an enemy. And don't think the enemy is an enemy. That's an oxymoron. The enemy is an enemy, but don't think, oh my, why do I have to go through this? We have to go through this because reaching our destination. Same mission trip, we're standing on street corners. When I say standing on the street preaching a sermon, where we had to stand and preach was probably a 6x8 box, and there was cars whizzing by us, and we're preaching and doing skits and interpretive dancing and all that good stuff. So about halfway through it, we hear something. We look up and there's a car coming down just the middle of the road, just flying. Oh my God. He gets down to us, the car gets down to us, slams on the brakes. Okay, it's a dark car, the windows are all tinted out, you can't see inside the car. We're all thinking, okay, we're getting ready to go meet our Maker, our Creator. The window comes down, lowers down. We said, okay, here it comes. Well, he called the pastor over there. So they ended up talking for a minute or two. And then finally, the young man steps out, and we're able to lead him to Christ. He said he was sitting up the street at a beer joint. They'll call it a beer joint. I don't guess it's Jamaica club, whatever it was. We were sitting up at the club, and he had a few. But he heard our music, and he heard our speaking and preaching, and God had told him, you need to go down there. You need to go down there and get saved. He left that club, came down there, stopped in front of us. Guess what that young man's name was? You remember? What's his name? Wife remembers. What's his name? Godfrey. His name was Godfrey. God freed Godfrey that day, that night. God freed Godfrey that night. But listen, that wasn't within our power. That was the power of Christ. But once again, we encountered an enemy. Talk about a few more things about encountering an enemy. Have you ever seen the movie The Green Mile? How many of you have seen the movie The Green Mile? Tom Hanks? Okay. You remember when the prisoner that can lay his hands on people and stuff comes out of it? You remember the molecules and the green bile, whatever it is, that would come out of it? Once again, we're on a mission trip in Haiti. This is 2 months after the earthquake. It had basically leveled Haiti, so it was in February 2010. Okay, so the earthquake had pretty much come through and leveled Haiti. There was a pastor there that had tuberculosis. Basically, the doctors had given up on him, said there's no hope. He had everything done that could be done, and doctors said there's no hope. So our team went down and began to pray over him. And honestly, y'all, and I'm not making this up, you can ask people who was on the trip, as we were praying, you could see brown smoke come out of his body. Physically, you literally see brown smoke come out of his body. He was completely healed that day. Completely healed through the authority of Christ. Okay? The doctor said there's no hope. The doctors didn't know Jesus Christ. There's always hope when Jesus is there. Don't never give up hope. When Jesus is on your side, there's always hope. Got a missionary friend named Melinda that does mission work in India. Good friend. She does, when I say India, you may think, well, India's not that bad a place. She's in the very back regions of India, and it's a bad place. So basically, she was warned by one of the tribes, the tribes, that if she got up at the church and preached, that they would basically come kill her. She's a doer of the word. She's not a hearer of the word. A hearer of the word would say, okay, well, I'm not going to go do that. The doer of the word, guess what she did? She went and preached because she knew she had God on her side. And God is for us and can be against us. Greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. Right. She went and preached. Sure enough, she hadn't been preaching but maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Here they come. Here comes the enemy carrying torches. Okay, they lined up inside the wall all around the church. Basically, have her surrounded. They began to start heckling her, and this is how she tells the story. She don't think she ever physically moved from where she was preaching at. And she said she felt God pick her up and move her spirit and place her right in front of the leader of that enemy that had come. And she began to preach in power and authority to that enemy and said that I will preach the word through my Savior Jesus Christ, who overcomes all things. Okay? And they ran out. They ran out. And she found out later through another tribal leader that the reason why they ran out is because when she said that word over them, they saw hundreds of soldiers surrounding and angels surrounding and protecting her and her team, and they knew they were no match for her. God is powerful. God is way more powerful than we give Him credit for. Too many times as Christians, we tremble and we fear instead of being bold and standing up for what is right. God's bigger than any army we face. God's bigger than the spirit of heaviness that we felt this morning that Sandy was talking about. God is heavier than anything. I mentioned a book a little earlier to you that Pastor Ron Carpenter wrote called Necessity of an Enemy. In that, he also says this statement. It says, in your progress toward God's purpose for you, anything you hang on to that God wants you to drop is an enemy. Read that to you again. In your progress toward God's purpose for you, anything you hang on to that God wants you to drop is an enemy. Listen, the Bible tells us in Psalms 41:11, God says, I know you're pleased with me, Lord. Or David said, I know you're pleased with me, Lord, for my enemy does not triumph over me. What are you hanging on to this morning? What are you hanging on to this morning that may be keeping you from reaching your destination? What enemy are you facing this morning that maybe you've chosen not to face and fight, but you've chosen to fly? It's time for you to plant your feet in the ground, turn around, go back and face that enemy and say, I have God on my side, and I'm going to win. And I'm going to win because I know in the end who wins. Okay? We've read the book back of the Bible, right? Back in the book. We know who wins. Me and my wife were talking a little bit the other night. I'm right now, the enemy I'm facing, I'm fighting in my life, is I've reached the enemy of contentment in my life. Okay? I'm 56 years old. God's been good to me. He's blessed me with a good job. I'm content with where my life is at. You can't afford to be content. You can't afford to be content. You have to get up, you have to get out and stay in the game, you have to fight. That's about what I'm saying. So I'm not standing up here telling you that I don't face enemies. And I'm not standing up here telling you sometimes my enemies don't scare me. If I'm looking at them through my eyes, they scare me. But then when I put on Jesus' glasses, he don't wear glasses, it's going to be perfect. But when I put on Jesus' glasses, it's like, dude, that's what I was afraid of. He looks like Ant-Man. So I'm telling you, anything you're holding on to today, any enemy that you're facing, you need to lay it down.
Amen.
You need to lay it down. Some of you are facing things because you're getting close to your destination.
Right.
Some of you are facing things because you've just taken the first step toward your destination. Some of you are facing things because Satan knows what your destination is more than you do. Okay? And he's saying, well, if I could even keep them from starting the journey, then they'll never reach their destination. What are you fighting today? What are you fighting today? I'd encourage you, if you have things in your life this morning that you're holding on to, things that you're holding on to, that you need to lay down and begin to fight the enemy. You opened up this altar this morning as I pray. I'd encourage you to go lay that down. Listen, until you take that first step, until you tell Satan or your enemy that, hey, I'm in it to win it. Okay? I'm in it to win it. Once you make that statement, once you show Satan who is the king, you can't overcome. You can't overcome. So as I pray, if you have things that you need to lay on this altar, strongholds that you need to turn loose of, things that may be keeping you from reaching your destination or even starting your destination, I encourage you to come.